In the headquarters of Denning Pharmaceutical, former employee John takes the elevator and opens his suitcase to reveal he has a gun. On the executive floor, he quickly kills several higher-ups and goes back to the reception, where he sees the police. John says that somebody had to do something and then he self-deletes. Afterward, news programs explain that Denning Pharmaceutical is releasing a new medicine which is getting FATA approval even though is causing fatal side effects that have already killed 3 people. Because of this, the company is facing a major lawsuit and its stocks are falling, so they're trying to get rid of all the evidence. An important layer called Alan decides to take the case against the company, which will greatly affect his career. He assigns legal assistant Tom to take care of the paperwork, and on Monday he must update his key card before entering the office because they get reset every weekend. Tom tells Alan he wants to include heart attack sufferers in the pharmaceutical lawsuit because John was their main witness and they lost him, but Alan stops him because small victims don't make money. Subsequently, Tom gets a call from another boss asking to talk about the Gombitzi criminal family case. Tom wants to get involved in that case, so he sends a memo, but his supervisor destroys it and chastises him for not focusing more on the cases he already has. Tom then heads to the filing area to store the file that Alan rejected. Anna, his co-worker and girlfriend, pays him a visit so they can exchange a few private kisses. A few hours later, Alan announces that since the servers have been down since last night, everyone can go home. Before Tom can leave, Alan tells him that he made a dangerous mistake with the memo he wrote earlier, so he fires him for it. In the elevator, Tom is joined by a man he never saw before. When they make it to the reception, the man leaves a suitcase on the floor and another guy picks it up before taking the elevator too, which Tom finds suspicious. After checking what floor the man went to, Tom tries to follow him, but his keycard has already been reset. He tries to leave, but he sees the stranger waiting for something outside and gets worried, so he asks the guard to activate the elevator for him. Once he makes it to the office, Tom looks around and discovers his co-worker Roger is at Tom's desk for some reason, so he asks his friend to open the door for him. Roger behaves strangely and Tom notices the file he put away on the desk. Getting more suspicious, he makes his phone start recording and hides it in a pencil holder. Afterward, he keeps looking around and discovers the mysterious guy messing with the power box. Unbelieving, when the man claims to be maintenance, one of the lawyers approaches him and requests identification. The man pulls a revolver and murders her as the lawyer tries to contact to confirm his presence. As the murderer removes the body to conceal it, Tom dashes to the restroom, opens a stall, and finds the security guard's body inside. Tom shuts the door and hides by climbing on the toilet when he notices that the toilet sensor has activated the flushing. The murderer soon enters and talks to the deceased while cleaning the blood from his face and saying he needs the keys. Tom manages to move into the other stall by sneaking under the wall right before the killer takes the keys, gun, and radio from the body. Trying to hide, Tom climbs on this toilet and almost activates the flushing again, but thankfully the killer activates his toilet first and doesn't hear Tom. Then the killer destroys the radio and leaves to shut off the fire sprinkler before going into the file room, where he installs some explosives. Meanwhile, Tom rushes to the break room and finds Roger, so he tells him about the killer before they rush into the elevator. Unfortunately, it isn't working, so they run down the corridor and try the emergency exit. However, the killer had already broken the bar and it can't be opened, so they're trapped. They return to the main area and try to use the reception computer, but the internet is down. Tom notices the killer is coming, so the duo hides, but the killer still sees the computer has been used and gets suspicious. After disconnecting it, he enters the desk area, revealing he also has a keycard. Once he's out of sight, the duo leaves their hiding spot to try to think of something else. Tom takes Roger's keycard and opens the door to the executive offices to find Alan, so he sends Roger to find his phone and call the police. As Tom activates the lock, he drops his jacket and it gets stuck in the door. While Tom searches for Alan, Roger makes it to his desk and uses his phone to call his wife. However, before he can tell her anything, the killer finds him and makes him say everything is fine. Tom rushes to the break room in search of a knife after noticing everything outside the window. Roger hangs up, and the assassin pulls a revolver and asks if anyone else is working late. When Roger lies and claims it's just him, the murderer takes hold of a cable and starts strangling him. Tom's phone records the entire incident. There is no one at the desk when Tom returns. When he reaches for his phone to dial 911, the battery dies. Roger's body is on his chair when he looks around the workplace after plugging in the charger. At that moment, the killer comes back and sees the jacket at the door, so Tom grabs Roger's keycard and quickly hides in the closet, where he's startled by the lawyer's body. Meanwhile, the killer begins dragging Roger's body while making a call on his own phone, complaining to someone because nobody was supposed to be up there. Suddenly, Tom's phone gets enough charge to start ringing. The killer checks it out, and after dismissing Anna's call, he discovers the video of his murder. He immediately deletes it and looks at the settings to find Tom's name and picture. Realizing this is the jacket's owner, he calls out Tom's name, but Tom stays hidden under a desk. After the killer leaves, Tom runs into another office and lights some paper on fire to try to activate the fire alarm, but it isn't working either. Suddenly, Tom notices someone in an office in the neighboring building, so he makes a bigger flame inside the trash can and pushes it against the curtains to start a proper fire. This gets the neighbor's attention and Tom makes a gesture to ask him to call for help. Unfortunately, the killer smells something burning, so he grabs a fire extinguisher and rushes to the fire. Before the murderer can put out the fire, Tom spots him and flees. Then, he pretends to be on the phone to keep the neighbor from calling for assistance. Tom arrives at the reception a few minutes later and makes a new keycard on the computer. He hides under the desk and puts the computer in sleep mode just as the killer is about to find him. Tom resets all the locks once the murderer departs, making it impossible for the murderer to use his card anymore. After that, Tom shuts out the majority of the lights in the building and rushes to Alan's workplace, only to discover him having a conversation with a woman. Tom ducks behind the door as the murderer shoots the office lock at that precise moment. The man murders the woman as soon as she pulls a gun, even though it appears like he knows Alan. He then tells Alan to stay in his office, grabs her revolver and walks out. Once they're alone, Tom asks about the woman's identity and Alan reveals she's part of the Gombitsi crime family. She was supposed to testify against their husband, so Alan guesses the killer was sent by the mafia to shut her up. At that moment, they hear a weird noise and discover the killer is trying to get into the file room by hitting the door with an axe. But it's impossible because it's reinforced steel and bulletproof glass. Afterward, Alan and Tom try to escape but must hide when they hear the killer coming. The guy arrives with the janitor and does an impression of his voice, asking Tom to come out or he'll die. Suspicious, Tom asks what nickname he always used for the janitor and obviously the killer doesn't know, so Tom guesses the janitor is already dead. Next, the criminal turns the elevators back on, trying to make them come out. Alan and Tom check the corridor and find the janitor's body with a note that says "You win." At that moment, they hear a phone ringing and rush to the desk, only to be shocked when Tom finds his own number calling. Alan guesses it's a trap and tries to escape, causing the killer to shoot him in the arm. The duo starts running away and the killer chases them as he continuously fires at them, so they hide in an office where they can lock the door. This one isn't reinforced though, so the criminal uses the axe to break it down. By the time he catches up to them, they're already getting into the file room. Tom tries to use the killer's phone to call for help, but it's protected with a password. Since Tom's phone is still in his possession and without a pin, the man texts Anna to invite her over. Tom, who is desperate to assist her, gets an idea and begins utilizing the copier. The murderer allows Anna in the door and demands her phone at gunpoint, threatening to destroy it. Tom arrives at that precise moment and offers to swap in his keycard, but the murderer isn't persuaded until Alan gets up to handle the talks. Alan hands the card to the criminal once the gun is lowered, and he releases Anna, but pulls out the guard's revolver. The killer punches Alan and carries him to the file room when he urges him to save Anna. There he complains that Alan didn't clear the office, meaning they've been working together. When Tom arrives with the gun after the murderer sets off the explosives, he finds that the criminal has all of the ammunition. The killer is imprisoned in the file room as Alan takes advantage of the opportunity to flee and the door shuts. Tom gives him a phony keycard that he manufactured with the copy machine, so when he attempts to enter with it, it doesn't work. Suddenly, the explosive goes off and starts a fire on the file shelves. The killer tries to put it out to no avail and passes out because of the smoke. Then Tom comes inside and after throwing the gun away, he puts the fire out by pushing the shelves and making them fall. Suddenly, the killer wakes up and attacks Tom, so a fight ensues. Demon quickly overpowers Tom and Anna cuts in to help, but she only gets punched. Tom uses the distraction to punch the guy and after they both fall, Alan shows up and shoots the killer. Before dying, the man whispers the numbers 11-22 and Tom takes the keys from his pocket. While Anna uses the keys to activate the elevators, Tom goes back to the desks and finds the case file, where he discovers that the pharmaceutical company wanted to get rid of all of the evidence. Then he types 11-22 on the killer's phone and unlocks it to find Alan's phone number. It turns out Alan was paid by the pharmaceutical company to lose the case, so he hired the man to destroy the files and kill Roger. Alan claims that corporations are more dangerous than the mafia and tries to bribe Tom, but he turns the money down and leaves with the file. Not wanting to go to jail, Alan self-deletes. Soon the police arrive, so Tom rushes to leave with Anna before they can be seen. In the file room, the copy machine is making thousands of copies of the case evidence. This is found by a cop, who happens to be the guy who left the gun for the killer. The officer finds Tom's phone in the killer's hand and immediately calls a hitman to send him after Tom to silence him.